Music theory is so commonly misunderstood to a point that it's just annoying. So I've just finished a rewatch of The Owl House, and I think it contains a really good metaphor for the exact annoyances I have with the way people talk about music. The Owl House is about Luz, a human who wants to be a witch. But because she's a human, she can't actually cast any spells, so she discovers this system of glyphs that she can use to do magic. But that made me think, if glyphs are like the natural origin of magic in this world, and it's a world full of witches who are using magic, does that mean they're all just using magic without really understanding how it's doing what it does? Like, how is Luz the first person to figure out glyphs? That sounds a little far-fetched until you realize that's exactly what we do with music theory. Now let's say you go and you find a piano and you hit some notes. And it's a combination of notes that don't really sound that good together. And you're a curious person, you want to know why it sounds like that. So you go and ask a classical musician about it, and they're probably going to tell you that harmony isn't really about why it sounds like that, but more about memorizing that it does and understanding how you can use that in your composition. So maybe you're not satisfied with that answer, so you go and find a jazz musician. You ask the jazz musician, why do the notes sound like that? And they're probably going to say something like, oh yeah, those notes don't sound great on their own, but in the context of a dominant 7 chord, it's a really good source of tension and release. You get this explanation that's in terms of all of the theory of harmony that's used in jazz. So maybe you're still not satisfied with that answer, so you go to a physicist and you say, why do the notes sound like that? And they say it's called dissonance. It's what happens when there's beating between the harmonic overtones produced by standing waves on an oscillating string. Now, if you ask me, I would tell you that those three people need to talk to each other. Because the classical musician, yeah, has a very proficient understanding of the theory behind classical music, but it only applies to that very strict genre. A jazz musician might have a more complete understanding of harmony, but they don't necessarily have an understanding of why it's happening. And the physicist does have that understanding of why it's happening, but they have no way of actually applying that knowledge to a song. Why does no one ever seem to care about the connections between all these ideas? So much of music theory is just descriptions of what is happening instead of explanations of why it's happening. And that's just like the magic in the Owl House. I don't care about what is going on, I want to know why is going on! This is also why I really hate those music theory catchphrases like, everything's in 4/4 if you don't count it like a nerd, or rhythm and pitch, the same thing. Because not only do they fail to address the why, they completely shut down any further discussion about what's actually going on. Is there no one else out there who cares about this? Think of, like, how much better the music we could make would be if we actually knew what we were doing! Okay, that's my crash out for today. Follow me.